Good evening, everyone. It is 7:31 on the 16th of February, 2022, and we will start our legislative meeting with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone.
Okay, Trustee Fritchie.
Present.
Trustee White.
Present.
Trustee Quesada.
Present.
Mayor Levin.
Present.
We have mayor's and trustees announcements.
Okay, anyone have any announcements? Looking around, I will. Thank you. Want to thank Deputy Mayor Quesada. Last Friday was a bit of a busy day. I think we posted most of the pictures, or somebody did on Facebook. You were at the library, which got a very nice grant from Senator Elijah Reichlin Melnick, and County Executive Latimer were there, amongst, I think, Dana Levenberg, supervisor, was there, a few other folks, but our own deputy was there, deputy mayor, and then went on to OVAC to give them, I think, a proclamation from the county for the amazing work that they've done. In case folks don't know, over 10,000 tests and vaccinations. I think it's 10,000 vaccinations and 7,000 tests, or I might have that backwards, but thousands of both of those. And we are one of the only municipalities with OVAC doing most of that for free. In most other places, there are charges associated, and significant charges, not just charges. So always appreciated the work being done for the community, for the school. And lastly, I think the next stop for the caravan was in Bethany. I was going to say our own, because I feel like it belongs to the village. I think it should belong to the village, but in fact, it's in the town. Nevertheless, it's one Ossining. And there is a beautifully curated show by our very own village historian in honor, as she did last year, for Black History Month. And it's mostly really dedicated to local Black history, which is a wonderful. I was supposed to attend, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for jumping in so quickly. I got stuck at other meetings and could not make it from the lower county to Ossining in time to be there with everyone, but thank you for that. And I think those are all, between the grants and the proclamation, these are all wonderful things. And Bethany continues to have, I'm sure Trustee White will elucidate, but I don't know when it ends, but I know it's still going on for at least another week. Am I right?
I think it goes into March.
Does it? Okay, fabulous. So even better. Highly recommend making reservations or just going. There's some really great shows and good things happening there. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility. I think the grant that they also are getting is to help them, or at least they're hoping to get, is to help them really enlarge their outdoor space, given that COVID is still with us, soon to be going on year 3. So whenever we have the opportunity to talk about the great cultural things that are going on in our area, highly recommended. Hello, Trustee Lopez. I was going to do a little song and dance. I knew you were going to be with us any minute.
That's
but
right.
But the song and dance didn't work for me tonight. Another time.
I appreciate the effort.
Well, just so you know who's there. So I think we're finishing with our announcement as far announcements. I guess I will also mention that we have one of the first DRI open to the public kind of meeting tomorrow, and that's been blasted out. The mayor's note had the names of the committee that represents a really wide and deep spread of folks in our community that are involved specifically in as it relates to downtown, because the DRI is a downtown initiative. So wanted to let folks know about that as well. And I wish I had some beautiful, wonderful quote for this weekend. It is, after all, President's Day, lovingly known as spring break. But actually, there is a President's Day to be celebrated there as well. And I hope people find wonderful things to do for the long weekend and even maybe for the week. So those are the announcements. Sir, do you have announcements? We were just completing them, but if you have something that you wanted to share, please do so.
None for me, just spreading love and joy. We can keep it moving.
I like it. I think this is actually the 20th anniversary of an organization that started 20 years ago that talks about, you said love and joy, and that's what brought it to my mind, that really does good deeds. And I wish it's about, small, or it could be, I guess, large, but they started with small acts of kindness. And I believe that yesterday was actually their 20th anniversary. So this week is Acts of Kindness week. And I noticed the mayor out west had challenged his municipality to 1 million acts of kindness. But Anaheim has many more people than we do. But I'm working on it for next year. I'm just giving everybody a heads up who's listening tonight. But in the gallery, he actually challenged the school system. Not necessarily the municipal staff, but we're going to have to think of something. I'm looking at you, Maddie. That's right. I know you can't see it in the gallery, but I'm looking right at your little square box. So that was some joyful way to start the meeting. And now to our regular meeting. Martha, please.
Administrative reports, Village Manager Karen DeTore.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I will be reappointing Daniel Garbowit to the Historic Preservation Committee with a term of January 1st, 2022 for the term January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024. And I'm also appointing Ulysses Castillo as an alternate for the Planning Board effective today, February 16th, 2022, for a term extending to December 31st, 2026. We have a lot going on as per usual. Tonight, we'll be giving an update of our parking recommendations that culminated from our parking study with Nelson Nygaard. We've already sent the board some information on that, and later during new business, we'll be talking about recommendations for a fee in lieu of parking for new developments, as well as a schedule of activities that we have laid out for the board to review, so that we can go forward with some of the recommendations from the study to ease the parking situation and facilitate more creative use of parking, expand parking, and also start looking at alternative mobility alternatives. Last week, staff met with the businesses and business owners and building owners from the Upper Crescent, Upper Main Street. And we talked to them about a dumpster program in the lot behind there. So our Director of Public Works, Paul Fraioli, our our Chief Building Inspector, Joe Agostinelli, as well as Lieutenant Demiano, and some of our sanitation staff met with the business owners. We had a nice group, almost everybody was present, to talk about moving them off the village dumpster program onto a private dumpster program, cleaning up that area that's been very problematic. And it was well received by the business owners and building owners, and we look like we have a good plan in place. Paul will be meeting with them individually to sort of orchestrate the transition. And we were very pleased with that as a first step of many steps that we're taking to address sanitation issues and quality of life issues on Main Street and throughout the village. We have our Downtown Revitalization Initiative is moving along. The first meeting of the local planning committee, which is a group of stakeholders from Ossining, who will be meeting along with the consultants and members of Department of State, Regional Office of Regional Economic Development Office and other stakeholders, as well as village staff and village leadership. Mayor Levin and Trustee White will be meeting tomorrow from 12 to 2, and that'll be the first of 6 meetings with the LPC. And we will be following up with our first public engagement session on March 8th. So we will have more information about that following this meeting tomorrow. We also have now, tonight will be, there's a resolution authorizing me to sign a contract that would allow us to begin remediation at 200 Main Street. So we're looking forward to getting that underway, as our Director of Public Works mentioned last week. Sunday, Maddie and I drove up to Albany for a meeting of the New York Conference of Mayors. It was their annual legislative meeting. So we were there Sunday evening through all day Monday with a lot of different workshops and seminars and speakers on various issues. We learned about revisions to the, or updates to the American Rescue Plan Act, which were our treasurer is working on that as well. So that would be, Austin, if you remember, is receiving approximately $2.5 million from that federal act, and it can be allocated to various projects that are related to relief from the pandemic, as well as infrastructure projects such as our clean water initiatives, a water treatment plant, as well as other broadband and cybersecurity. So we looked into that. They're evolving that program. They're trying to make it easier to get funding and navigate funding and do the reporting on funding. So as we go forward with that and get more information, we'll be keeping you apprised of the options that we have. We also, I was able to attend a session on infrastructure funding that dealt with funding from Department of Transportation for road work. I don't know if some of you have seen the governor is committing billions of dollars to road work in throughout the state, and her goal is to eradicate potholes. So she is now, that is a primary mission. It's something we need in Austin, as we all know, on our state-owned roads. So we'll be working closely with our contacts at the Department of Transportation, who we've already been discussing the Route 9 road diet, the narrowing of Route 9 on. So hopefully that money will translate into good work throughout Westchester and in Austin to address some of the issues we have with state roads. We also talked about water funding. Most of the grants for the water treatment plant we have accessed, but we're always keeping our eye out for new opportunities. The governor's budget, we also had I was involved in a policy discussion on the governor's budget, which includes some mandates for accessory dwelling units and mandates for development near train stations to address affordable housing issues. Generally speaking, state mandates for municipalities was not widely received as favorable, and there'll be ongoing discussions with the state, varying municipalities weighing in on how we can address the crisis of affordability and do so in a way that is specific to the needs of individual communities, recognizing there may not be a one-size-fits-all solution to these challenges. And we also heard a lot about the Marijuana Reform and Taxation Act. So Maddie sat in that seminar. So if you'd like to report, Assistant Village Manager.
Sure. Thank you, Karen. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Board. Yes, we had a very busy 24 hours up in Albany. I also got a chance to sit in on a couple of very interesting programs. As Manager DeTore just mentioned, the cannabis conversations are going on throughout the state. We were joined by someone at the state level who was working on that program. I know some of the folks on here were on the cannabis conversations call for the Mid-Hudson area just about an hour ago. So definitely a hot topic. The one takeaway I want to push to the front is that many communities seem to have gotten to December 31st by the skin of their teeth. We are certainly leading the pack in terms of beginning the conversation about zoning, which I think is a really positive thing to share back. basically, there were a lot of things that we have already discussed. Basically, the 2 licenses that municipalities had the option to allow or prevent being dispensaries or on-site consumption lounges, but that there are another 7 licenses that basically municipalities don't have any control over whether those get issued to folks in their boundaries. And so basically giving licenses to folks down that whole chain that they said from seed to sale, to make sure that, you know, you can't really monopolize the business by getting a license in all of those 9 sectors. So I thought that was pretty interesting and not really something I had heard before. But again, they underscored time, place, and manner is really the only control that municipalities have about cannabis controls. And I know that's something that our planner, Jaime Martinez, and Stuart Kahan have been working on and presented to you last week. They also mentioned a couple issues that we have not seen yet in Ossining, but things to sort of look out for. So I'm happy to debrief the board on that at another time. Additionally, I had the opportunity to go to the Community Relations Committee session, where they're talking about a lot of different things, some things mostly insider baseball, some things having to do with EMS issues in the state budget that they're looking to rectify. I know Manager Dottori is a member of a small consortium here in Westchester County who's putting our great experience with OVAC to the forefront in order to inform other communities of how they can better manage EMS staffing and budgets. So we talked about that. We also talked about a couple of reforms that NICOM is looking to civil service, which I'm sure will be of interest to some, if not all of you. And basically, we talked a lot about COVID, even though, you know, we feel like, you know, maybe we can get a breath and take a break from COVID for a short while. A lot of these leave policies are still in place. The New York State legislature has sort of forced our hand to continue, you know, to give unpaid time under certain circumstances, and there is no sunset on that provision. So basically trying to encourage our legislators to maybe give that a second thought. But again, I you know, learned quite a bit. Look forward to sharing back in a more formal venue some point later this month. So thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind people listening, cannabis zoning, that topic. Yeah, I guess we are a little bit ahead. I'm okay with that. Is we want to have our first of the year village hall meeting versus town hall meeting. We name it Village Hall. That we would like to hear from the public. And we haven't done a lot of them in the past, so I'm looking forward to see how it shapes up this year. I don't know if it's virtual. I think it's going to be virtual. It just seems to more people are able to attend virtual meetings than public meetings that are actually done in person. So I'm leaning towards that, but we'll see as it gets closer to the date. Right now, that's where we're leaning. And so looking forward to that. Thank you for sharing that information. Glad it was productive. Martha? Oh, I'm sorry. I think, oh, Martha, I guess we have Corporation Counsel next.
Yeah, Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Martha. Good evening, folks. Just to follow up on some of the comments from the Assistant Village Manager, there are 2 cannabis conversations that remain to be conducted by the Office of Cannabis Management. There is one tomorrow night, and there is one on the 22nd, which will be in Spanish. If you are interested in registering, you can go to www.cannabis.ny.gov. Interestingly, folks, and I didn't realize this till the beginning of the conversation, they are very much against using the word marijuana because they find it has certain connotations from negative in terms of how it has been used in the past. So they were only using cannabis. There were a number of questions that were asked tonight. I will point out that the first question asked, but it was by an unidentified person with the first name of Maddie. And it was a wonderful question, and it was very helpful. But there were a few things that were very interesting. One was a question about off-site sales. For example, if you have a village fair, could you sell off-site? They are actually considering that as part of their regulations. The other question that was asked, another question was asked about, what about cannabis-infused food? Can you do that? And where can you do that? The important thing to note is the draft regulations are expected to be out late winter, early spring. They will be followed by a 60-day comment period. after which the regulations will go into effect. It is one thing that was noted is that if there are individuals who are interested in opening or getting licenses for these various businesses, and as the assistant village manager noted, there are 9 potential licenses that someone or some business could get. The recommendation for now is to work through local development corporations, local business organizations to start putting together a business plan. The license fees are not yet set. They have not been decided, but it is important to note that in addition to just dispensary and on-site consumption, you have cultivator, nursery, processor, distributor, delivery, and there are a couple of others that are in there as well. All of those, and the one point that was made tonight, and for those folks who watched it, I apologize for repeating, is cannabis is legal in New York for anyone over the age of 21. That's the important thing to note. Now, the question is, how do you deal with the businesses? That's what this is all related to. But it was very helpful. It was a presentation tonight by the chair of the committee, of the commission, with a brief introduction from the executive director. So again, there are 2 more coming up, one tomorrow and one on the 22nd in Spanish. I invite anyone who is interested to watch. You can send in questions, and if they don't get to your question during the 1-hour presentation, they will send you an answer, which is nice. This coming Tuesday, we have a planning board meeting, and it is a full agenda. And once again, you can watch the meeting remotely. You can see all the documentation that is submitted through the web. And anyone who is interested is welcome to attend and to watch that meeting. On tonight's agenda, the board will be considering the adoption of the procurement policy, which was discussed at last week's work session. The board will also be looking at a resolution to include additional language to cabaret licenses relating to limited extension of hours based upon discussions that the board had with staff. So that language is there. There is also a call for a proposed public hearing, there's a call for a public hearing on proposed local law 2 of 2022, which, as discussed last week, would extend the time for outdoor eating or outdoor facilities beginning instead of May 1st on April 1st. So, and that public hearing would be called for on, I apologize for this, I just lost my place. That will be on March the 2nd. So those are a couple of things that are up. With regard to the reimbursement policy, I know all of you are waiting with bated breath. I can just let you know there are a few things that are just being revised there, so that's why it is not before you, but we do have the longer and, frankly, to be honest, more important procurement policy, because the procurement policy must be adopted annually. So that's why that's here, and I do want to thank the board and staff, particularly Dale, for all of their input with regard to putting this together. And that's it for this week, folks. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Stuart, and always appreciate a little humor in our meetings. Sense of humor is important. Martha, I'm not even finished with my little joke yet, but okay, go ahead.
Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. So major focus for the police department this week has been traffic issues. As you may have seen from some of our social media postings, we've had a higher than average number of accidents on Route 9A. So we've assigned a number of officers out there to try and reduce the number of accidents in that particular location, in addition to all the rest of the places. It does appear that across New York State, there are an increase in accidents just from the increased volume of driving and people driving aggressively. So something we'll be actively looking at over the next couple of weeks. In the schools, we had a couple of days of reading to students in the lower schools. We had a games day in AMD where we're doing programs during recess in lieu of doing evening activities for students. We're actually doing our outreach programs in the schools during the school day with cooperation from the school district there. Our chess program, Chess with Chavez, goes on at Austin Public Library. That began today and runs for the next 4 or 5 weeks at 6 p.m. on Wednesday nights in the cafe level at the Austin Public Library. terms of training right now, we have annual in-service recertification for CPR and first aid going on for everybody. And in staffing news this week, we got retirement from Officer Anna Carey, who will be leaving the department as of today. That's my report for tonight. Thanks.
Sorry, I had my mute on. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, is there anybody here who would like to make an organizational announcement? If so, please raise your virtual hand. There's no one, seeing no one. Is there anybody who would like to make a public comment on the agenda items on tonight's agenda? If so, please raise your virtual hand.
There's no hands up.
Nobody? Okay. So then we'll get on to the village board resolutions. Approval of minutes, February 2nd, 2022. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the minutes of the February 2nd, 2022 regular meeting as presented.
Second.
Any comments? Oh, Martha.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of voucher detail, February 16th, 2022. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the voucher detail report dated February 16th, 2022 in the amount of $653,109.39. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any comments?
Yes, Mayor. So thank you, Dale, as always. It's always an interesting reading over the weekend. It's a little high, and Dale was very kind to put that explanation why it was a little high is because we got a water bill from New York State from last year, was it, Dale? So that's the reason why it's a little higher than usual. Well, sort of kind of higher than usual. But thank you, Dale, for that. And I'm not sure, Martha, if you could, early today when I was going into the website, part of our minutes or part of the agenda, it did not have the voucher attachment in there and the amount was missing. So
yes, and I finally figured out what was the reason. So
okay.
We had all the town emails moved over to the new 365. And as a reason, some of the emails have not been getting to our inbox. So I was waiting for the voucher detail report on my inbox, on my computer. It never came in. I logged in today to log into the meeting, and that's where it's been floating around. So I realized that right before the meeting, and I put it in there. We're still trying to figure out how this new Outlook 365 is working. But for the future, I'll keep an eye on it a little more tightly next time.
I appreciate that. No worries, but yeah, if you can update our portion of the vouchers on our website, that'll be helpful as well. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're on to the next item.
Okay. Appointment landlord tenant relations.
I'm sorry, we have to vote for the vouchers.
Oh, we were in the middle of the vote. Sorry about that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Appointment Landlord Tenant Relations Council. Resolved that the Board of Trustees appoints the following individual to the Landlord Tenant Relations Council 2-year full term, January 1st, 2022 until December 31st, 2023. Sheila Vernon Massengal, tenant. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments? Except to thank her for her service, which is much appreciated. I think we still have a couple of openings.
Yes. I'm gonna try to schedule that next week, Mayor, if you want to be there. But if not, I'll coordinate that with the chair, the tenants, and I'll ask Jamie to help me out with that.
Yeah, if we do it by Zoom, I could do it on Monday because I know it's actually a holiday. But for me, that works, but it may not work for you or others, but we can talk after the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. DPW award of bid asbestos abatement and incidental disturbance cleanup at 200 Main Street. Resolved that subject to review by Corporation Council, the Board of Trustees hereby awards the bid for contract number DPW 21-04 asbestos abatement and incidental disturbance cleanup at 200 Main Street for Par Environmental Corporation, 313 Spook Rock Road, Unit 1, Suffern, New York, 10901, for the bid amount of $297,750 as the lowest bid received from a responsive and responsible bidder. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Comments? I'm just going to make a simple one, and I see Paul Frioli's on. You know, when I started as a trustee, we used to talk about 200 Main, and everybody sort of rolled their eyes because for many decades it was desolate. So every time I see it in any of our agendas where we're making decisions, I only think of that as a really good thing, that we're just moving it forward, and I appreciate everyone that's involved in making that happen. Can't wait to get it back on the tax roll. We're in the middle of a vote, I think. Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Resolution authorizing settlement for Frederick and Anne Marie Berg. Whereas Frederick and Anne Marie Berg, claimants 14 America Place, Austin, New York, filed a notice of claim against the Village of Austin on October 21st, 2021. And whereas claimants allege that they sustained damage to their property on September 1st, 2021. And whereas the Village's Corporation Counsel and Defense Counsel reviewed documents submitted by the claimants and therefore concluded that settlement of this claim was warranted. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin authorizes settlement of the claim of Frederick and Anne Marie Berg for $9,200, and be further resolved that the Treasurer of the Village of Austin is hereby authorized and directed to pay to Frederick and Anne Marie Berg $9,200 in settlement of the aforementioned claim upon delivery to the Village of Austin of a general release for settlement of the claim. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments? Martha?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Authorizing the village manager to sign a license agreement with AF Croton Avenue Corporation with regard to minor encroachments onto village-owned property, whereas AF Croton Avenue Corp. is the owner of the property in the village with the street address of 78 Croton Avenue and a tax map designation of 89.19-2-17, and whereas AF Croton Avenue Corporation has received amended site plan approval area variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals and approval from the Board of Architectural Review for the construction of multifamily building at the above address, and whereas the property survey shows installation of light fixtures, molding and stone facade with limestone cap will encroach into the village's right of way no more than 5 inches. And whereas AF Croton Avenue Corp. has asked the village to enter into a non-exclusive license to construct, use, and maintain the premises in accordance with the plans and survey made part of the application for license agreement, which application and associated documents are made part of this resolution. And whereas the Board of Trustees discussed the application for a license agreement at the February 9th, 2022 work session. Now therefore be resolved that upon review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign a non-exclusive license agreement with AF Croton Avenue Corporation to permit the encroachment onto village-owned property as depicted in the application for license agreement and associated documents.
Second.
Comments?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Procedure permitting an authorized cabaret license to request a limited extension of the cabaret's hours of operation, whereas pursuant to section 100-11 of the Village of Austin Village Code, the Board of Trustees is responsible for granting or denying applications for cabaret licenses. And whereas during a recent board meeting where cabaret license applications were discussed, an applicant inquired whether there might be occasions where the cabaret could operate later than the hours set forth in the license. And whereas after consultation with staff, the Board of Trustees determined that a procedure should be developed allowing these establishments granted cabaret licenses to request on the village manager an extension of the cabaret's hours of operation for a specific event and a specific day for good cause. Now therefore be resolved that effectively immediately the procedure detailed below shall be made a part of each approved cabaret license, and be further resolved that the village clerk shall forward a copy of this resolution to those establishments already granted a cabaret license for 2022. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any comments? I'm going to make a general comment so that it's clear and on the record that this board, this is by listening to the public and some of the business owners, we made some adjustment to policy that we had passed. As a general rule, given feedback that we are getting from the community, some of the bars in Austin, I mean, I think the mixed use and many more residential units being downtown and just a little bit of an increase of population has just created a situation where really loud noise late into night, really into the morning hours, has become an issue really between neighbors, between a business and the residents surrounding it. And there has to be some sort of balance. So as a general rule, we have moved from a 2 a.m. Cabaret license, not the bar license. That's not our role here, but it's really about the music and the loud music going from 2 a.m. to 1 a.m. There were some issues with holidays that were brought to our attention. So this is an adjustment sort of in thinking and policy. We also denied some cabaret licenses, given community feedback, police feedback, discussions with the board, discussions with the business owners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to put a bit of a context to this. And I think this is a nice solution, giving the village manager ability and flexibility for the businesses concerned when there are things in the middle of the week or on the weekend where some adjustments in time might be made. I will say that in all these cases, or at least in one particular case, the business owner said it's not going to be used a lot, but it would be nice to have it once in a while because it gives them the ability to improve a business condition for them. And that is our goal. So one of our goals. So I appreciate the work behind this. Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adoption of revised procurement policy, whereas section 104-B of the general municipal law requires a governing body of every municipality to adopt a procurement policy for all goods and services which are not required by law to be publicly bid. And whereas the corporation council and village treasurer reviewed the village's current procurement policy, most recently we adopted at the January 5th, 2022 reorganization meeting, and presented to the board of trustees and staff a revised policy, including new sections relating to the recently enacted local law 14-2021 best value, emergency procurement, protest policy, and procurement ethics. And whereas a revised procurement policy was discussed by the Board of Trustees at the work sessions, now therefore be resolved that the Village of Austin Board of Trustees does hereby adopt the following revised procurement policy, which policy is intended to apply to all goods and services which are not required by law to be publicly bid. And be it further resolved that the revised procurement policy, which is made a part of this resolution, is effective immediately and replaces the procurement policy adopted at the January 5th, 2022 reorganization meeting. And be further resolved that the revised procurement policy shall be posted on the village's webpage. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Any comments? Oh, I need a second, I think.
A second.
Any comments? Okay, Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Call for public hearing for proposed local law 2/2022 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 216 Sidewalk Cafes, Outdoor Dining, and Sidewalk Sales of the Village of Austin Code, where resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on March 2nd, 2022 to consider proposed local law 2/2022 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 216 Sidewalk Cafes, Outdoor Dining, and Sidewalk Sales of the Village of Austin Code, and be further resolved that the proposed local law amends Chapter 216 of the Section 216-3B by extending the period when a permit to operate an outdoor dining location shall be valid from the current May 1st through October 31st to April 1st through October 31st. And be it further resolved that as a result of Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021 signed into law by Governor Hochul on September 2nd, 2021, which law authorizes any public body to meet and take such actions authorized by law without allowing the public to be physically present at the meeting, and upon the signage of Executive Order 11.3, which continued the suspension and modification of the open meetings law through March 16, 2022. The public hearing will be conducted remotely via the Zoom platform with instructions for those who wish to watch and or participate listed below. And be it further resolved, the written comments of the proposed local law will be accepted until the public hearing is closed at bot@villageofaustin.org. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments? Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fire Department appointment, Washington Hook and Ladder. Resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief Chase Federich, Austin, New York, was elected an active member of the Washington Hook and Ladder for firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, is there any continuing business of the board? No. So new business of the board, we have topic proposed in lieu fund for downtown parking, and Maddie Sasha Sanchez, Assistant Village Manager, will be presenting.
Okay, thank you, Martha. Karen, I don't know if you want to give an introduction to this or if you want me to just roll with it.
Sure. I mean, I set you up during the announcements, but really this is just the follow-up to the Nelson Nygaard study, the parking study. We really would like to implement some of the things that we know are pressing issues right now and address some things that actually have been recommendations on the table for quite some time, even before the study and in previous studies. So in an effort to get the ball rolling and keep us moving ahead in a positive way, we've put together a recommendation, and I will let the assistant village manager take it from here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Karen, and good evening, everyone, again. So as Manager Dottori mentioned, we are moving forward on our parking plan for 2022. You may recall back in December, I presented what that plan would look like, along with a memo to accompany. The board should have received yesterday what's basically an action plan, so sort of summarizing all 13 actions being recommended for this year, as well as where we are in terms of implementation, what exactly is being asked of the board, whether it's a code change to a local law, or if it's something we can do administratively, and then also a pretty good guess of when we're going to get to it. Of the 13, there were several that really ought to be done concurrently. I will say that we had a meeting, Karen, Jaime, and myself had a meeting with Tom Brown from Nelson Nygaard, who was the lead on our study. Was it last week, maybe 2 weeks ago? And we shared a lot of this information with him. He was very proud. He believes we're on the right track. But the first two steps are what we really want to discuss with you tonight, and sort of lay the pipe for our conversation next Wednesday, which is going to focus a little bit more closely on the in lieu fee for downtown parking. The first step has to do with our payment app for parking. Jamie and I were on a very productive phone call this afternoon with Passport. We're getting ready to roll. We actually managed to make it easier than what they had actually envisioned originally, so we're really excited. Jamie is doing an amazing job as usual with the advertising and social media that she has queued up for us, and really that's the first step to kick off this whole process. But a couple of the steps can be done concurrent with that, and the second one that we've prioritized is the in lieu fee, which, as Manager Dottori explained, is something that has sort of been kicked around for probably about a decade, and is something that's used in a lot of communities that are neighbors to us. The board was also provided by a summary of other local codes, other folks in Westchester who have an in lieu fee that was collected by the Corporation Counsel's office. So we definitely have something to work from between those code references and also the Nelson Nygaard appendices and feedback during the study. So the third thing the board will have received is a memo from the manager and I about the in lieu fee. And for those who are just catching up, in lieu of parking is basically a way that the village can, let me take a step back. So right now what happens is in certain neighborhoods, certain zones in the downtown specifically, if someone goes to develop a property and for whatever reason can prove that they are not able to provide the adequate parking on site as determined by the zoning code, they can either go to the planning board and apply for a parking waiver, or if it's an area variance regarding parking, they go to the zoning board and that can be granted as well. Basically, in either scenario, the village is not really receiving anything for that. We're basically just granting a pass, and to get us in a position where we can be better suited to maintain, improve, and potentially expand the parking that we have, it's been a recommendation that an in lieu fee would basically be a buyout of those parking spaces. And it's not a one size fits all. They do this all across the country. There's a lot of municipalities in Canada and Colorado and California in particular that have been doing this for quite a while. We are not reinventing the wheel. There's a lot of good material out there. But basically, Nelson Nygaard has encouraged us to start taking a look at not only what potentially we might have earned over the past couple years had we monetized those waivers for applications downtown, but also establish a baseline that the board could readopt in the fee schedule every year of what a parking spot may cost. So looking at construction costs, what it would cost us as a municipality as opposed to what it would cost for a private developer to create one, and come up with a number that doesn't incentivize people to do it necessarily, but discourages them from, potentially building you know, the parking that this board doesn't want to see. So sort of finding the happy medium, depending on whether it's a small or large project, and hopefully getting us a little bit closer to potentially a parking structure somewhere in the downtown that is going to be partially funded by these in lieu fees. So our ask tonight is hopefully everyone's had a chance to at least give an eyeball to what we provided regarding the in lieu fee, and help us to prepare for the deeper conversation with you next week. What would be helpful information to supplement what we've given you? Is it perhaps imagined overlay zone on the current zoning map? Is it some additional examples of local communities? We're looking for some preliminary feedback to develop a broader proposal for next Wednesday.
Okay. Anybody? Comments? Okay. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Manny.
No.
I didn't see that you. No, please.
No, I definitely want to thank everybody that was actually part of this. And that's something that maybe not for 10 years on my end, but I definitely we've been something that I have brought up to the board on previous years, and back and give them some samples of different legislations on this. I guess something that for me, I wouldn't want to create an overlay. Me personally, I think it should be something across the board. Something that, because I don't want to me, it will be favoritism from one project to another one. I don't think I will want to see that. And definitely I agree with you, Maddie, and the parts where you said every year the board should be looking at this, because construction costs goes up every year. And one of the reasons why we are trying to do this is to create a parking fund to, possibly have a parking structure at some point, not to fund the whole thing, but to help a portion of that. Looking at the documents that you have in here, I didn't read all of them. I was reading some of them stuff from yesterday and today, but I'll definitely have more questions probably for next week. But it's very helpful. In my head, I'm thinking of all this stuff, but I want to have the forum to talk about this more formally, as you said, for next week. But this is very helpful, so thank you.
As you said, just eyeball it. I don't want to lie and say I read it. That wouldn't be fair, but I'm always interested in where the goalposts are and what the actual goals are. And building a parking structure for more parking for me is not actually a goal. It's a better quality of life. It's about enhancing neighborhoods. These are goals. It's how it helps people for the next 30 years, not about another way to collect money for structures. So I'd be more interested in that conversation and what other communities have done. I mean, there might be different goals in different communities that we may not even be thinking about. And that I don't want to be here. It doesn't matter whether it's me or others, and say, like, what do we do this for? So I think goals are really much more important to me, not collection of money for the sake of collecting more money from the same people. So that's important. Some comparisons would be great to like municipalities, which I think you're already addressing. So I think that's sort of cool. I'd sort of think about models that look at doing it like, I think the word pilot is used weirdly in municipalities. It means different than what it does in marketing, but I like to start everything on one even ground, because if you want to measure what might work and what you might want to change, if you already start differently, different discussion from same end game as Manny, but a little bit different. We put a stake in the ground, we do something, and we make sure that we talk about timing. Yes, it can be looked at like a fee every year, but to keep it going at least a year, test it, have a way to analyze it, and not a bunch of people who, guessing, but actually put some metrics into it would be really appreciated. It doesn't have to be complicated. Would also, I think, be helpful. The rest I have to read because I just haven't seen all the different aspects of it, even though we've been discussing it for the past whatever number of years in different ways. and mobility changes. We're seeing it with the pandemic. So, you know, we all sit around, predict, and then 10, 15 years later, people go back and say, wow, they predicted, but they hit it wrong. So I want to understand if communities that have already done this, if you say this is being done across the country, I'd be really interested in a community that has a more mature system in place, 20 years already or something, to say, hey, where did they change? Why? What happened? Not really history, and not really origin story, but more sort of where did they recalibrate, so that we might learn from changes with more mature environments rather than ones that are more recent. I think the more recent are probably easy to figure out. It'll be of interest to me personally. Anybody else have any questions or comments or so? No.
That's very helpful feedback. And also, like I said, I know that, you know, Stuart personally has been working on this for quite some time, and has sort of amassed a lot of stuff that the board is going to be able to pull from as we examine this more closely. So I will take those considerations in mind, and we will circle back and chat about it, and hopefully have something a little bit more targeted to present to you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Can I ask just for one more thing? You mentioned Stuart, so this popped into my head. Do we have any analytics for the past, I'm going to say 3 years, I don't care, pick a number more than 1 and less than 10, of how many requests we've had regarding parking that we have put through the system?
As a matter of fact, we do.
Is that one of the things you said you're looking at? You're looking to, is that what you said? You're going to look and say, had we charged something or in lieu of for that specific item? That's how you, okay. So you're you're thinking that way already.
Yeah, I apologize, Stuart. I didn't mean to step on you if you would like to answer it differently. But Jaime Martinez in his office actually pulled applications going back to 2019 of both of those different types of waivers. So either the area variance for parking from the zoning board or the parking waiver from the planning board. And we did a quick little summary of that in the memo as well.
And you don't think COVID has any effect on those requests because they probably were already in the pipeline, like, because you're choosing a couple of years of a major sort of seismic change in our environment across so many different issues, but you don't think it matters that COVID has an effect on that?
COVID wouldn't have an effect on the parking waiver, like that would be required for parking for a development that would be presumed to extend beyond the pandemic. So I don't think there were any considerations for the pandemic that were taken into consideration for the waivers.
It has no effect. Okay, fair enough. I hear those years like in everything I read, and I right away say pandemic years, was that an issue? Great, so you're saying a non-issue here. Anybody else? Interesting stuff. I feel like hard to believe it's mid-February and 2022, and this is stuff started like 21. I mean, I know we've been discussing it, but really good. We need to have like a drum beat or something as a background music now every time you guys come to these meetings, frankly.
I could just beatbox. I'll let Karen do all the talking.
Again, I'm liking the sense of humor. Got to keep that going. Okay. What else, folks?
Okay. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but are relevant to the common good of the village? If so, please raise your virtual hand and we will bring you into the meeting.
I'm not seeing any hands just yet. Should I beatbox? Oh, we wait.
I knew there was going to be some. There goes.
Yeah, I mean,
Trustee
look at Dana.
White is
Dana's
there.
jamming. Okay, sorry. There is no one, Martha.
Okay. No, I don't see anybody. Okay.
Okay, and then are we adjourning to executive meeting, Stuart?
Executive session, matters of real property, matters of litigation. Thank you, Martha.
Okay, so I need a motion in a second.
So move.
Second.
Comments? I doubt it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I think we're going to vote and close this meeting at about 8:25 p.m. We'll see everybody next Wednesday. Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good evening, everyone.